Welcome to the lab. This is the Legally Armed and Black podcast show. My name is Slim. I'm here to entertain you today, get you informed, up to date, and to go over some current events just to get some idea of where everybody stands, everybody's opinions, and everything. But all in all, guys, we're on this podcast just to update you on current events, keep you in the loop on training tips, videos, just different stuff, just to keep the new gun owners and stuff up to par. So we're going to start with 4 basic rules of firearm ownership. First and foremost, rule number 1, you always point your gun in a safe direction. So ideally, you would never point towards a group of people. You would never point towards something that's actually living or breathing unless you intended on shooting it, which we hope it was in self-defense. 2, you always treat your firearm like it's loaded. So under no circumstances should you have time to be pointing at friends, family, any of that, if it's loaded, right? Exactly. We don't play with guns because we assume that every firearm is loaded. 3, be aware of your target and everything behind it. You're responsible for every you're responsible for every bullet out of your firearm. If you shoot and you miss and you hit somebody else, that's on you. Regardless of what led up to that situation, that is on you. Unfortunately, that is on you. And last but not least, your finger. Your finger needs to remain off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Don't touch the bang stick until you're ready to bang, okay? Wonderful. And now right there's for our newbies. Other people, you may know them. You may not need this information, but ain't nothing wrong with reiterating something we already know. Next topic I wanted to touch on. Are you aware that even though we are a constitutional carry state, there are some places you are not allowed to carry? Now, I'm not talking about the basics. I'm not talking about the courtrooms. I'm not talking about the banks. I'm not talking about the hospitals. What I'm referring to is when you go to a grocery store, it is your responsibility to identify if they have signs up that prohibit you from carrying. There may be a 3007. Now, these are Texas state penal codes. Now, the 3007 says no open carry. That basically means you can't just walk in the store with your firearm outside waistband holstered in visible plain sight. You can't conceal. 3006 means no concealed carry. That means that you can't hide your gun on inside of your waistband. You can't have it under your armpits with a holster that allows you to conceal under your arms. You would have to actually open carry it, and you could have a long arm on your back, or you could have it on your hip hanging off visibly, but you can't conceal it. Lastly, 3005. I'm sorry, the 30.05. So the 3005 is a penal code that states no constitutional carry. So what that means is that unless you're licensed to carry, you're not allowed to carry on this premises. Even though Texas says you can legally carry openly, concealed. You can constitutionally carry in general, regardless. These are the signs you need to be aware of that may limit where you can and cannot carry. You may need to change where you go shopping at. You may need to change where you go banking at. Unfortunately, they're not going to change their rules for you. So you may see a 3006 and a 3007 together. If you see them together, just put the gun in the car. There's no reason to have it in the store at that time. Excellent. Now, what I really wanted to touch on today, you all, is a recent event that happened. Now, there was an incident that went down in Chicago where a woman was in line ordering pizza, waiting on her order, whatever the case may be, and there was a gentleman there. The gentleman was not really polite about his demands that she grab her food and go, if you would. Whatever the case may be, they had a heated discussion, and he did all the talking. Now, granted, in the video, you may see her say something. She tells her son to go to the car. He responds, goes to the car, who? What? Something like that. Either way, it ends up with him telling her if she says something else, he's going to knock her out. And he proceeded to knock her out. Now, he didn't knock her out. Instead, he got a bullet to the back. Her son was in there. Her son did not appreciate the disrespect, and he let it be known. Now, they were arrested, but later they were let go or released without being charged, and it is said to be self-defense. Me personally, I'm all for it. I seen the video. I have no bias. I mean, but have you seen the video? That is the important part. I just want to know, what's your take on this? What could have happened differently? Should anything happen differently? I mean, was there any way to avoid this situation? Some people said, well, by his demeanor and the way he talked, she should have just recognized that this was a possibility and she should have walked off. Again, one can argue that stand your ground or does not actually state that you have to retreat or flee a situation if you can actually legally be here. So if you can legally be somewhere, if I'm allowed to be here and I'm here doing my normal day-to-day activities and someone assaults you or threatens you, what do you have to do to be able to avoid the situation? My question is, why would you have to avoid the situation? You came here, you had a right to be here, you minding your business, and somebody assaults you. But anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's get into this video.
Get your food. Who? Get in the car? Who? Nay. Get your food. Get your food. If you say one more thing, I'm gonna knock you out. Oh my grandma, say one more thing, I'm gonna knock you out. Say one more thing, I'm gonna knock you out.
You can hear in the background somebody says, he told you. You can hear a woman saying, he told you. That's sad. That's all I can say about that. I don't believe any female would appreciate being stole on, swung on, hit in their face. I don't believe any young man would appreciate their mom being hit. I don't believe that young lady would appreciate being hit if she bumped into me in the line and I had a problem with it. I don't believe it will be, he told you. But either way, it led to this 14-year-old pulling the trigger, defending his mom's, going to jail for 6 days, and being released. What could have happened differently? Who knows? I mean, somebody in the line could have interfered. Somebody could have came in trying to intervene, try to de-escalate the situation. The workers could have asked them to leave if you wanted to. I didn't hear any mention of the police being called, and I understand who we are, and I understand how we operate, and I understand why. So I understand. But given these barriers that we face, because one, we're not really trustworthy. We're not really trusting the police. Let me say that. Fuck being trustworthy. We don't need their trust. They need ours. I don't think too much could have happened differently. The son could have tried to fight. He probably would have lost that fight. The mother could have tried to fight. She probably would have lost that fight. She could have tried to walk off, but who's to say he was going to let her make it to the car? And when you're in the parking lot, anything goes. I mean, they probably had a camera in there too, but again, police are for after the fact, and any other situation could have still put her in harm's way. Ideally, the only logical way of thinking, my logical way of thinking, the only way I could actually think to avoid the situation was for the man himself to leave it alone, or just determine that I am the man and I could harm her if I wanted to, but it's not important. I mean, if it just came to get food, let her get her food and go. Stop harassing her. Why are you standing beside the line? Is you even in line, sir? I'm confused. I don't know, but that's neither here nor there. I would like to talk about the recent law that went in effect June 1st. So there was a law that the ATF pushed, and they stated that if you had a SBR brace on a rifle that was under 16 inches, you would have to register that with them, and you would have to pay that. Well, no. You would have a grace period to register without having to pay the $200 tax stamp. I believe we had 180 days. After that deadline, you have to get it registered, or you are now considered a felon. It is a felony to possess a short barrel rifle, a SBR brace, a rifle that is under 16 inches with the SBR brace now without having it registered and you paying that $200 tax stamp. Now, I just want to bring to your attention, guys, what that means is that you have to be extra careful with your accessories. Now, one, you have to be aware that if you have anything under 16 inches, you don't need to have a stock on it by law. The Supreme Court, there was a pause on this up until the point where the Supreme Court refused to overturn the ruling, so they backed the ruling, and then it is officially law now, okay? From what I understand, it's been less than 1% that actually registered their firearms. So that leaves a lot of us felons outside. I'm legally armed and I'm black. I don't know about y'all. I'm not going to jail for anybody. I took mine off, okay? I don't need it. It's not that important. 2.23s, 5.56s, not too much recoil, you're all right. 7.62, you'll be all right. Just buy a sling, you'll be all right. I promise you. I did want to talk about some simple firearm trainings and stuff that we go over just to keep ourselves on point. We do what we call dry firing. I'm not too familiar with a lot of African Americans being up to par on it. I know a few myself. I know instructors. I know competition shooters. I know people who do tactical shooting, but I don't see it a lot in regular everyday life. I see a lot of people on YouTube videos playing with their firearms. You know, they letting the guns go off because they're playing with them. Again, your finger should never be on the trigger. It should never be pointed at somebody. You should always treat it like it's loaded. These are certain things that are in place for certain reasons. But again, I don't see a lot of us actually training certain ways. So you can go to the shooting range indoors and stand still and shoot a target, but that's one thing. You can shoot a moving target. It's a little bit harder. But do you shoot out past 100 yards ever? You know, have you ever just zeroed in your own sight or stuff of that nature? If not, let's not even worry about all that just yet. Let's start small. It's called dry firing. Dry firing. Dry firing is the act of going through repetitive tactics with your firearm. You're going over different drills, different procedures. You're just going through these drills with an unloaded weapon, an unloaded magazine, your holster, and your time and your focus. You're just going over these things to make sure your grip is good. You can actually holster and unholster your weapon as needed when you need to. When a blink of an eye, ideally we want to be under, second. It may seem hard, but it's not. We do dry fire drills where it is very important that you understand that, again, you're never using live ammunition. Your weapon is not loaded. You want to have targets placed up, and you can transition between targets as you go. Just different things. You can practice reloads. It's very fun once you get into it. It's competitive as well. So that is also something that we're going to get into on here. We'll go over different drills you can start at home with, practicing to get used to it. And what I hope is that with all the new gun owners, with all the new information coming out, with all the Black people getting active in the gun community, that we are able to start something beautiful here. I don't want the sinister street rap mentality with gun owners. I really want more law-abiding. And I say law-abiding, I understand, but understand me. In order to actually be a gun owner, you have to be legally able to own a firearm. So in order to do so, you have to abide by the law. Again, stand your ground, self-defense. Those are two situations that would make you able or put you in a situation where you are able to defend yourself. But we do not talk about harming people. We're not going to go on no offensive. We're not in this right here to be bad guys or be badasses at all. It's strictly about being informed, up to date, knowing what's going on, and being more aware about our surroundings and situations we're in. And that's pretty much it. Not for the show, just for that talk right there. Thank you. Next, I wanted to talk about everyday carry. We call it EDC, everyday carry. It's the weapon that you carry every day. It can be a Glock. It can be a Canic. That was not a Canic, I know, but you don't know. Okay. Also, there's other things besides guns. You may carry a knife on a day-to-day basis. It just really just depends on what situations you may be prepared for, if you would. Ideally, an everyday carry is the setup that you have that you trust your life with every day. I wouldn't leave the house without my Glock. I do have other firearms, but battle tested, improved, performance-wise, just me personally. I'm left-handed. I haven't had problems. It really jams. I will admit, it doesn't seem to like steel cases too much. So that's been the only problem I had with my Glock. Other than that, it runs properly. We want you to get familiar with your everyday carry. We want you to test it to a point to where you are in situations where you're not just standing still shooting, you're behind cover shooting, you're moving to cover while you're shooting, you're walking towards the target while shooting, just different scenarios to get you used to different stuff. You want to build up the muscle memory to just do this second nature. You want to have this as an instinct, because survival is an instinct, and it's a basic instinct for humans and animals. Again, Malcolm X said this in a speech, okay? And I'm just reiterating that this is something that we slack in a lot of the times, because a lot of the times the black people that we do see in situations are those black people that either A, live that life, or two, are not of that life, but get caught up in it, been in the wrong place, wrong time, said something to the wrong person. Whatever the case may be, people, we just want everybody to be more aware. We want to live in, ideally, we want to be able to go outside and not have to worry about our neighbors being the problems, if you would. Because I feel a lot comfortable at night knowing that you got my back if a lone shooter wanted to come and start some problems. I know I can depend on you. But if we got our problems, we beefing over small, irrelevant issues, you might let him shoot me and don't even give two flying fucks about it. But that's neither here nor there. This is something we'll touch on later. Right now, I do want to also add that it's important to train and improve your manipulation of your firearm. Self-defense or defensive shooting is the art of defending yourself, a loved one, an unarmed, helpless individual. It is not an offensive attack. And again, I keep reiterating this because nowadays we see a lot of people who think that because you said something to me, I can pull this out, or because it starts off as words, it ends up with egos, and then they take over. So it can be something, you stepped on my shoe, you bumped into me, as opposed to you just saying excuse me, opposed to me just saying, you know what, it's nothing, let it go. We then let that be the reason. We let our egos take over. Somebody pulls a gun, somebody's scared to fight, somebody can't take a loss, whatever the case may be. I would really like to see more, if you had to, use your hands. As far as for us, we need to be on point with everyone else. And I mean, we talk about black on black crime. You hear the terminology, but we don't ever hear white on white crime. You don't ever hear Latino on Latino crime. We don't talk about African on African crime. And there's a reason why. So when we talk about black on black crime, it's kind of a gray area because we're overlooking all the other crime that goes on. However, I just want to touch on it because I feel like we need to have less of that. There are times where you can be in a argument, or you can have some type of confrontation and you can talk it out. You can choose to fist fight, which me personally, if we talking it out, we don't even have to fight. We can agree to disagree and still don't have to fight. But if it comes to the fight, I understand. I don't understand what happens after the fight. Other than that, you can always turn around and walk away. We forget that all the time. It's not about being hard. It's not about being seen as a pussy, but the bigger man. And when I say the bigger man, this is not trying to be, oh, you can walk away. Not every time I turn my back, but there have been situations where I got older and I realized that you may put yourself in a worse situation by trying to confront something when all you have to do is just leave it alone, let the idiot talk. He can talk to himself. He can argue with himself. I don't have time. It's just an example. Eventually, we're going to have some skits on here. I have some other things to talk about and discuss as well. I do want to discuss the active shooter situation. In the active shooter situation, you pretty much have three options. You can engage, you can wait it out, or you can flee. That's pretty much the only options you have. When we say engage, that means if you're a concealed firearm owner, if you are an open carry firearm owner and you're in a situation where somebody's in a public setting and they're actually letting off rounds trying to just shoot anybody at all, you can say, I can handle this. If you have the skill, if you have the training, because as Body Bao says, it depends on your training. It depends on what you're comfortable doing. And if you're not comfortable doing it, don't put your life at risk. Again, you can find cover or concealment. There's a difference between cover and concealment. Cover will provide cover from the bullets. Concealment conceals you. So that's the difference is you behind a brick wall or you inside a car. I want to take a moment to touch on the actual firearm itself. Of course, you have different accessories, different types of builds, you call them. Well, build itself, you can make your gun look however you want it to look. You can make it all black, red. You can have a different type of barrel on it if you want to, a different type of slide. You can change out the grips. You can change out the sights on it. It gets very complicated. You can do whatever you wanted to the gun. But what I learned over my time in training with the Huey P. Newton Gun Club is that you only use the accessories that you need. So I don't necessarily need a flashlight, a laser beam, a red dot, all these fancy ones on the same gun, depending on what the gun's use is for. You have long distance shooters. You have some that just do close quarter combat. So it kind of depends on what your setup is for that would determine what you need. Because if you're long distance shooting, You wouldn't use a red dot unless you have a magnifier. If you're close quarter combat, you can have a red dot. You can even have a magnifier that flip to the side, but it depends what you're going to use your firearm for. They have a lot of different type of handguns. They have name brand ones. They have new ones that you may have not heard of. They have cheap ones. They have quite expensive ones like Stako, things of that nature. So when you pick a gun, pick the one that works for you. Perfect hand grip, fit in your hand perfectly, not too much recoil. But in order for you to know that, you have to go and actually try it out. You have to go to a gun range. You have to go somewhere, get one, rent one, and actually test it to find out what works for you. I bought a bunch of guns when I first started. A bunch. Not a lot, but a bunch. I don't even see most of them. Most of them are just up somewhere. I say that to say you can waste time and money because a gun is a gun nonetheless, but not all guns are equal. Not all guns are created equally. Same thing as bulletproof armor. Not all 3+ is the same as the previous 3+ or the next 3+. You may find a 3+ that can take a 7.62. You may find some that cannot. You may find some that can take a shot from a green tip. You may find some that are totally destroyed. You may like steel. You may like the new composite plates. It just depends. Personal preference sometimes. Sometimes you go off of what has been tested. Me personally, I'm not here to tell you what to use. I don't really have a preference. I do have a Glock. Yes, I like my Glock because it hasn't failed me personally. But you got people who don't like Glock. You got people who like Canics. They call them Glock killers. You got people who got Stakos. You got people who got SIGs. So many different guns out there on the market. Why don't you have one? Just one. Ideally, you got full-size pistols, mid-size pistols, subcompact pistols. You have comfortable grip. You have aggressive grip. It kind of gets complicated because I'm not even all goddamn too familiar with the motherfucking terminology behind all this shit, y'all. It's complicated. It's a lot. As many animals they got guns and parts. I promise you. You go find a motherfucking animal you ain't never seen before. We gonna go find a gun you ain't never seen before. Goddamn it. They got goddamn me 6 shooters, 10 shooters, 20 shooters. It's so much out here in the world today, y'all. Have some fun. You know, go to the shooting range, do some experiments, get some pieces of wood, buy you some ballistic gel, whatever you need, man. Just make it a habit to train to survive and make sure that you are prepared because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I do want to talk about when you're in a situation, what's going to be important? What's important factors to consider when you're in a situation? So you get into an argument. You get into a road rage incident. You know, you're at the store and somebody just randomly harshly bump a cart into you for whatever reason. You try to let it go. They follow you around the store. They won't smoke. They follow you to the parking lot. Again, stand your ground does not require you to retreat. Self-defense sometimes does. You have to check with your state. Sometimes self-defense state, you must do everything in your power to remove yourself from that situation. That's why I love Texas. Texas says, fuck all that, bitch. You supposed to be here, bitch? Fuck that motherfucker. And that's how we operate. But in a situation, first and foremost, you have to learn to, one, either ignore or de-escalate verbal altercations. Because this right here, you can do this all day long, from 2 feet away, 10 feet away, but I ain't hurting either way. You get what I'm saying? We got to learn to get past the verbal. Also, we do not feed into egos. So though you may be put in a situation where they are aggressive or they are threatening you in a manner, you don't want to tell yourself, well, these people looking at me, I have to react. You don't want to tell yourself, oh, I got to show him. Don't let your ego be the reason that you go to jail, okay? Because you're going to jail, I promise you. Now, with road rage, it's a tricky situation, but a lot of people brandish their weapons in a road rage situation. There was an instance somebody called my phone and was like I was on my way home. Somebody pulled up on the side of me, flashed their gun. I didn't know what to do, so I just took mine out and shot at them. Me personally, I understand. Somebody flashed a gun at me. I don't know how I'm going to react until it happens. However, them flashing their gun inside their vehicle, that's one thing. You actually firing your firearm on a highway or a street, what everybody else see. Everybody else didn't see that person pull up on the side of you and pull out their gun I pull out their gun. They just seeing you pull your gun out the window and fire. What that leads to is it leads to complications when the police come around and start asking questions because it's your word against theirs. And even though you say they brandished a gun, it's going to fall to you having to be able to, one, describe what you saw, what the firearm looked like, and hope they haven't had time to stash it or get rid of it. Again, you don't just fire warning shots because you're not supposed to discharge a firearm within city limits in general. So what that means is we're not giving warning shots. The only warning you had was the one when I said, leave it alone. And I tried to go about my business, or I went about my way until you made it an issue. And I'm not telling you to live your life by these 100%, but it helps because I've made it thus far without having to draw a firearm on any human being. Specifically any human. Animals don't count. Be careful because it also works both ways. Threatening actions or threats in general, it works both ways. So you can threaten somebody else as well when you think you're in the right. And it gets tricky because recently I seen a video where there was an African police officer outside the club or something at the night. And he went to a vehicle and he was pulling on people in the vehicle with his gun out. He had his gun in his hands for at least 3 minutes. Never used it, just threatened, touching people, assaulting people. And when he walked around from the back door to the front door, somebody unloaded on that police officer right then and there. You don't ever pull your gun unless you have to use it. But if you do pull it, you better make damn sure you're going to use it because you don't know what that other person is going to do. You don't know if they're going to let you go. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Don't take this to heart. Just know that these are certain things that should be on your mind because these are certain things that can arise. You sit in your car, somebody come and open the door on you and trying to take you out the car. You only have a split second to think how to defend yourself. Either you're going to let them take the vehicle or you're going to try to fight. If the gun's already drawn on you, it's probably a battle you have already lost before it's even begun. You just got to be more up to par. The more you train, the more you're mentally prepared for any situation. You're more mentally prepared. A UFC fighter can train for any situation, but they still not prepared for a all-around fight. Yes, they train. Yes, they can fight, but in a street fight, rules don't apply. So we're not following the same dynamics as MMA fighters and boxers. In the streets, don't nobody care. You don't even get a fist fight nowadays. You possibly going to get shot. Just keep that in mind. Before you approach somebody, before you buck up at somebody, try to intimidate somebody. And I think everybody should keep that on their mind because it can happen either or. You can do it to somebody can do it to you. Last thing, I heard that posting your pics or your training videos of your firearms and things are bad, that they can come back on you, or they could try to argue that you trained to kill or that this is a sport to you. You just want to be very careful about your overall character. How do you come off? Because a character witness can damage you. All right, so for right now, y'all, we're going to take a break. We want to let y'all go and process some of this information here. We want to try to come back and have a little bit more material, talk about some other things, probably get into some more videos about what happening around the world and what else scenarios. But you all stay tuned. This is just the first of many with the lab, legally armed and black. So don't forget, Slim, and we appreciate you for tuning in. Also, don't forget, like, subscribe, and please leave your comments.